quiero que pongan cuidado, en Cincelejo no vayan a salir de noche. Una vampira 5 hombres ha chupado y les prevengo por si acaso se la topen. Lo raro de esa vampira es que no ataca a hombres pobres, le gusta la monedita, dicen los que la conocen. Ay, que vampiro, vampiro, que vampiro, vampiro, que vampiro, esa vampira le voy a poner una trampa, porque yo soy muy rejugado, muchacho. Me atacará creyendo que tengo plata, pero estoy más limpio que la espalda de un plato. Lo raro de esa vampira es que no ataca a hombres pobres, le gusta la monedita, dicen los que la conocen. Ay, que vampiro, vampiro, la vampira la busca. Mueve la
5, 6, 7.
Salgan, salgan, bailadores, salgan todos a bailar. Los vampiros están viendo que no hay nada para ganar. Bailen, bailen, bailadores, los vampiros cenarán. Las que estén más sabrositas, los vampiros chuparán. Mira, mira esa gordita, mira esa gordita. Con cuchara o con popote, los vampiros chuparán. Los vampiros, las vampiras no pillan. Pobrecitos los vampiros, porque la
No, Tiny. No. Don't turn it down from there. Don't turn those down.
It just takes over?
No, don't turn them down. Turn this down. I'll turn it down. You can start talking.
I'm not going to use the microphone. Okay. That's why she's
Don't
not
turn
gonna...
that down.
Okay.
Don't touch. Yeah, leave that up.
For libation. I know.
Well, you don't have to turn that down.
Good late evening, good day, grand arrival to this very moment. I look in each one of your eyes and I say thank you for arriving. Thank you for coming into this space and honoring that today is the Degentrification tour. And it is a pleasure and an honor to always be amongst this beautiful family of CORE, of Hopefulness, of Decolonize Academy, of the Landless People's Movement, and so many extensions of this beautiful tree that is ever growing, because we are all seeds and all planted to have a divine purpose. So we thank you, we invite you. We just want to we gonna welcome this vibration today. So can everybody stir up this love energy right here? Because there are some things that are being birthed in us, through us, and around us that are beyond magnificent. I don't even think there's a word that expresses what is happening in this space right now. So I'm gonna come around, relight this smudge, and if you're okay with being smudged, please just give me a nod, and if you're not, you know, just give me a wave. Nod for smudge, wave for I'm okay. All right, because we never want to invite any energy that you are not welcome to have. You can just shower yourself with this. Even in the light burn, it's lightly burning right now, but even in the light burn, there is fire there. That everyone has been smudged. This is a healing space. This is a cultivation space. This is a space where we honor life and we continue to edify life. So at this time, I'm going to welcome Sister Karina Gold. Okay, thanks. So I would like to ask the oldest person here if it's okay to go forward. Mother, I believe. 68. Do you give approval that we move forward?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Thank you. So we would just like to honor all of our ancestors and welcome all the elements that hold us, carry us, and move us through this life called journey. I'm going to pour and we can say Ashe. Ashe.
Ashe.
You can, if you'd like to invite an ancestor into the space, you can say their name and I will pour and we will say Ashe. 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 You can say their names aloud. Ashe, give life to them. Ashe. 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 And all of the lost angels to senseless violence. Ashe. All of the violence around the planet. It could be food violence, it could be shelter violence, any of the violences that disenfranchise life. We acknowledge that in the spirit of love right now. Ashe. And as we move forward in this ceremony today in the Degentrification tour, we ask that you fully bring yourselves, your heart, and your whole self. Ashe. The next step, I'd like to invite our sister Lori as we move into the Degentrification tour. Thank you.
Hello, hello. Let's try to come all over here. We do need to be mic'd.
So welcome everybody to Port Magazine Hopefulness. I go by the name of Muteado Silencio. What we're gonna do right now is, again, we always wanna point out that Hopefulness was started with a poetry. It started with a storytelling. And thank you, Mama Blue, who started in bringing the ancestors, because we recognize that if it wasn't for the ancestors who carry us in their shoulders, Hopefulness and what you're actually witnessing right now wouldn't even be here. That's why we also, and at some point we talked about on your left left to some of you guys, right to some of you guys, we have a shrine. We have again, honoring all the people that passed away. These was started by a group that we collaborated, Decolonize Oakland, and again, it's to memorize the people that have been killed by police brutality. But along the way, also people from the neighborhood have brought their pictures of the loved ones who passed away. And in our culture, we believe that as long as you remember, as long as you say their name, they're still with us. Their spirit is still with us. So again, we call it the ancestors. We also see these fine young sisters and young brothers who are wearing these jackets. We also, the Poets Project, and what we do is we're poets. And we use the word not only to heal ourselves and to heal our communities, but also to speak about the resilience. As many of you guys know already, this is a project led by poor people, indigenous people, low-income people, people who have moved 20, 30 times here in the Bay Area because of the high rates of rent, because of the lack of housing. So again, one of the things that I always like to say, one of the things that caught my attention and made me want to work with Poor Magazine is that it was an organization led by people who were first-hand impacted, people who themselves have been homeless, living on the streets, people who themselves are migrants displaced from their homelands. And yes, there are well-meaning organizations out there, but sometimes they speak about us like the other people, those people. We gotta help those people who sometimes make us feel like we can help each other for ourselves. So I don't want to blab too much because I want us to do a little poetry, and because that's what we're here for. Muteado silencio, presente y me alegro. Mis palabras son mis labros. Mi lápiz es mi arma. Muteado silencio. My words are my bullets. My pen is my gun. So sit back and relax, because we're gonna drive by your minds. Did I just keep something in? Yes, I think it's a manifestation of it. It ain't easy. It ain't easy to be out here in the front, guys. Yes, I knew that all along. I was just trying to give you a little snip of what we're gonna be doing this tonight. We, the people, communities of color, workers, migrants, grandfathers, grandmothers, mamas, daddies, elders, babies, young folks, indigenous ancestors, aboriginal people who have spent love, sweat, and tears caring for our communities, our barrios. We, the people. Boys, in fact, we need a mic. Anybody who has a mic out there?
This tree, this garden, this flower, for generations, century, and time beyond Gregorian missionary calendars, have been displaced by the forces of money, power, real estate speculation, corporate theft, corporate government, philanthropy, pimping, redevelopment, criminalization, gentrification, and now only exist as a cultural memory an artifact?
A reference, a brushstroke, a photo, an exhibit, a dream to be studied, theorized, painted over, documented, and or forgotten and erased completely as though we were never there.
Gentrification tours are us. Exist to document the theft, reclaim and take back the stolen spaces, places, memories, images, pictures, lives, and dreams.
To tour and document the default colonizers and the 21st century missionaries, our erased and colonized cultures and cultural stealers, to reinsert ourselves in the stolen landmark and to reclaim what little of us might be left. Gentrification tours are us. Coming soon to a displaced, dismantled neighborhood near you. All right, everybody. So we're going to introduce ourselves, like my brother Motiado said, through what we call the slam bios, because we believe as poor people, as poverty scholars, that we use poetry, theater, words, art, and tears to teach our lives of struggle, trauma, resistance, by any means necessary to this thing they call the colony. I'm going to pass it to my sister Lori for the first slam bio.
I never really have a slam bio. Hi, my name is Lori. My trade name is Ecstasy, and I'm a digital resistor and a welfare queen.
Yes! Auntie Frances!
I am that black woman as I am. And please don't call me no queen or princess. I'm a motherfucking outlaw. For I stand outside his law despite it all and share with y'all my story of battle, struggle, and resistance.
My name is Bibi T. I'm on the scene with Poor Magazine all the time, out there in the plantation trying to make creation for real housing for our folks, getting that population handled. And that's the way we do it, because we know exactly, because we the experience and we live the truth. Peace.
We are the poverty scholars. That houseless mama, that houseless daughter. We are the poverty scholars. All the people you don't want to see, never want to be. Look away from me. What you gonna do? Arrest me? We're in your city. Yeah, we are the poverty scholars, and I usually rock my jailhouse attire because me and my poor mama did the poverty crime of being unhoused in this stolen Ohlone LaShawn territory, this holler. I am the melanin challenged daughter of a strong Afro-Boricua mama for without whom there would be no me, a mama soltera and a welfare queen. Can I get a witness for the welfare queens in the audience? Mama Mama Lori, Mama, oh my God, Mama Audrey and Mama Blue. We got so many, and all of our new welfare queens. Because we don't need to be called criminals for the sole act of trying to raise our babies, feed our babies, stay housed, and stay alive in this stolen land they call Americlan. So, as we said quickly, and we're not going to get into too much, today's point is, we, as you saw opening up this thing we call the gentrification tours are us. And we intentionally take this kind of cheesy perspective because the hipsters and the chipsters and all the people who don't want us there are constantly creating new lands right on top of this already stolen land. Like what you're looking at, this is now called the Heartlands, just because some developer decided it would get more white rich people from Frisco to not be afraid of the beautiful black Arthurs. Yes, I did say. Not be afraid of our poor people, of our communities of color, who have been here for years and generations, like our PSIP. Right. So we're here today to actually launch the very first, what we're calling Degentrification tour, because we are on this beautiful stolen Ohlone LaShawn land in this sacred project we call Hopefulness. And that's a homeless people's solution to homelessness. Can I get a witness? No government grant built that house. That was poor people that built what's in front of you. And yeah, it ain't done. And no, we don't got the money for windows. And we're going to be asking people, help the poor people get windows. And we don't even have the money to finish them, but we built that out of the blood, sweat, tears, resistance, and never giving up. And believe you me, this is every day is a struggle. But we're going to get more into that. But before we do, we talk a lot about the concept of gentrification and displacement. Do people really know the history behind it? Do they really know how black and brown communities like Black Arthur were launched and intentionally killed for the sake of developers making money off of our heads? Do they know that the first form of gentrification was colonization of the original peoples here? And do they know that that colonization and those tools of colonization were not that different than the way that poor people and people of color are being displaced right now? And so today's degentrification starts with history. And we are blessed to have our sister Karina, who is actually First Nations of this land, who we asked permission of before we even started Hopefulness, who walks with ceremony, brings prayer, and refuses to believe and accept and honor the lie of discovery, that somehow just because certain people got here, this land was discovered and this project was new. Actually, it was ancient, and it's been here for thousands of years. So we have the blessing of having Karina speak on that, and we're going to hear from her, and then we're going to be hearing about the history and the herstory of the decimation of black and brown communities all across Americaland from our brother Bilal, and then we're going to be doing more work on what we're facing right now. So without further ado, let's bring up our sister Karina Gold. Woo, 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 woo.
Yes. Mother, sister, teacher, reacher.
Oh, look at this.
It's okay if that comes off, actually.
Oh, okay.
We need a new mic.
We need a new mic, all right.
Always.
Hodeshe Tuhi, Ka'at Lashanka, Ka'at Ra'a Karina. Good day, relatives. I just spoke in the first language of Oakland. Chochenyo was the very first language here in the East Bay. My great-grandfather, Jose Guzman, was the last speaker of the language. I introduced myself as LaShawn, and LaShawn is actually the first people of this land. A lot of times during colonization, what happens is that people give you a name that wasn't yours to begin with. And so when the Spaniards first got here, they called us Costanoan, and they put 8 different nations together and called us that. We actually have 8 different languages and 8 different creation stories that come from the south and the north. And our land base goes all the way from Vallejo down to Monterey and out to Highway 5. And so amongst all 8 of those different nations, we share that land. And so I'm honored to be here with Poor Magazine and Decolonize Academy and Hopefulness to offer a prayer and then talk a little bit about our land that we're here on today. So with that, we always say a prayer, and so I'd just like to offer, this land had a lot of prayers on it, and always asking for more prayers to be put down here to take care of us. So with that, grandfathers and grandmothers, we thank you for this day and this wonderful group of people that have gathered here to hear us. We ask that we open our hearts and our minds and our spirits to one another so that we can create community, so that we can create a place that is good here, so that we can create more places like this throughout the world, to help take care of one another, to be in community with one another so that we learn to be interdependent and not dependent on other things. We ask that we come together and we take care of all of those things that are not healthy for us, and to get them out of our way and to bring in healthy, good things for us. We ask that you continue to bless this land and the people that are doing the work in good ways, people that are helping those folks that are doing the hard work through all kinds of different ways. We ask that you bless them as well. We ask for special blessings for those that are sick right now, those that are elderly, that we're going into the winter, those that don't have a roof over their head, that we take care of those as well, those folks that are relatives that are on the street that we try to not see. We ask that they are fed and that they are kept warm, and that we as human beings come together to find a solution like this that can help folks all over the place. We ask for special blessings for the water. We thank you for the rain. We ask that we as human beings can clean it up for the next generations, that those generations that come after us are taken care of in good ways. Those babies that are coming now to us, that we are good human beings and that we fix the world for them, and that we take care of those that are crossing to the other side, those that are not, that are met with by their ancestors, and those that they leave behind, that their hearts are held in your hands. We ask for all of these things right now, and all of the things that we are not saying right now, we go into our hearts and to take care of those things. So Tiny asked me to also talk about where we are. So we are on LaShawn territory, and LaShawn territory is a piece of the Chochenyo land. And we actually, so Chochenyo speaking people actually went from right below the Carquinez Strait and all the way to the middle of San Jose. And right here is the territory of Huichin. And so if you live in any of those places, you guys are in the territory of Huichin. We had names and for all of our places. Folks that lived in San Francisco come from Yolamu places. So there are names for all of these places beforehand. And so when Tiny and Poor Magazine first got here and got this place, they asked us to come out and to say some prayers on this land and ask for permission to be on this land, to create this beautiful space that we can all learn from. And of course we came with songs and we came with medicine and we said prayers on this land. And we've come here many times to lay down the prayers on this land that has always been our ancestral territory. Some people think that we've all been gone, but we're here. And the great thing is that when we work in community, like with Poor Magazine and Hopefulness, that we create these things that are different than what's outside in the world, in the corporate world, in the capitalist world. That we create communities that was once like my ancestors had on this land before, where people actually share with one another, where people actually know each other's know their neighbors, where people become interdependent on each other for things that we need in our daily lives. And one of the things that I found is that when I first had a really good connection with Poor Magazine and Hopefulness was when we actually took over a space in Vallejo, California that was one of our ancient villages, and they came and they prayed with us. And it was that relationship, when you pray with people, when you eat with people, when you struggle with people, that you create a community that is very hard to break. And so that bond has kept us together in doing the work that we're doing. I now work with Hopefulness and sit on the Elephant Council, help to make decisions when it's needed to happen, and come up and sometimes do work with the young people. And so I'm very thankful to always have another home. This is our home here, that this is this occupied land is being given back to who we're supposed to be given back to. That we're actually uplifting this land and the work that we're doing here on this land so that it could be a model for other people to do across the world. That we begin to learn to be with each other in communities like we had always been. No matter where we come from in the world, we lived in smaller places and took care of one another. And we need to do that again, especially in these times, to do that again. So thankful for the vision of folks from Hopefulness and Poor Magazine that have done this kind of work.
So again, going back to the concept of decolonizing and degentrifying this stolen, already occupied land, which is what we're doing, as Karina beautifully articulated right here at Hopefulness, we need to frame it in the ways in which actually displacement and gentrification is possible, and the way it's been happening since the beginning of this project called AmeriClan. So to do the next piece on black and brown framing of that, we have the powerful Black Power identity politics himself, the amazing, the one and only Bilal Mafundi Ali.
Don't say that too loud. The FBI's got BIEs on blast. Huh? I'm black, I identify with black, and I'm an extremist when it comes to self-determination and liberation of the new African nation. All right. So anyway, I want to start off. Well, I want to start by saying free the land. Free the land. Free the land.
Free the land.
Free the land.
Free the land.
We say free the land because we want our hearts back.
That's right.
We say free the land because we want to continue to nourish our dreams. And we say free the land because we are still excited about the new worlds that we are going to create on the ashes of racial capitalist imperialism in its evil. So free the land.
Free the land.
So anyway, yeah, we're going to talk about the how black and brown communities during the 80s and into the 90s were basically destroyed. How the government had means of destroying and causing destruction on these communities and witnessing this through what they call the crack cocaine epidemic. But I want to take the epidemic out and say what it was, drug crisis, because when we talk about epidemic, that's following the state-sponsored narrative, right? The panic and moral course on the crack cocaine. But anyway, so as we know, in the 1980s, well, when we talk about the destruction of black and brown communities and the crack cocaine crisis, we must begin talking about counterinsurgency, okay? Because this is a result of a counterinsurgency strategy that came about as we were, some of us were, I was in the Panther Party, some of us were in the 60s and the 70s were raising hell in this country. And we were causing a lot of turmoil in this country through the civil rights movement, the black liberation struggle, and the anti-war movement. And we were confronting this country with some serious truths and serious contradictions. As this country held itself out to be the beacon of democracy and freedom and justice and all of that, we were challenging that and clearly showing that that was a big lie. And it was causing a lot of problems with the government here. So the government said, well, you know, the two dangers, the Nixon White House said, the two dangers are the anti-war movement and the black liberation movement. And actually we need to face it. This is coming from Nixon, as reported by his aide, John Ehrlichman. We need to do something about the blacks because, let's face it, the blacks are the problem. And when he was saying that in the sense because black people had been in the vanguard in the liberation and revolutionary thrust that was going down in this country in the 60s and the 70s. And as a result of that, other groups start taking upon that model, say like the American Indian movement, the feminist movement, the LGBT movement, and other movements took that model and used those models in their particular areas of struggle. And so we were making a bad example as far as Nixon was concerned. So they had to come up with a deal, and they said, we have to do something that's going to destroy these movements, especially these black movements. They're going to destroy these movements, especially the black community, but we can't make it look like that's what we're going to do. So they created the war on drugs. And when John Ehrlichman, Nixon's aide, was asked, well, was that true? And he says, no, we all knew it was a lie, the war on drugs. See what I'm saying? But it was a way to go after these revolutionary movements and formations without people freaking out. So war on drugs started. It was panic driven, it was moral driven, and it basically opened the gates, hyper-militarization of our communities. It opened a gate for that. It tore our communities, not only did it tear our communities apart, but it's pitted our communities, the members of our communities against other members. All right, black and brown middle-class folks supported the war on drugs. They supported it, whereas working-class blacks and lumpen blacks did not support it. And to show you this divide and how strong it was, 18 members of the Congressional Black Caucus, along with, y'all remember, y'all Bay Area folks, y'all remember Ron Dellums? Yes. Now Ron Dellums was one of my heroes back in the 60s because he backed the Panthers up and supported the Panthers. But Ron Dellums and 18 members of the Congressional Black Caucus not only did they support the anti-drug legislation passing down through the Reagan regime, but they actually co-sponsored it. They actually co-sponsored. So that was that division in our community that split our communities along those lines. So when they introduced the crack cocaine in the community, and this is again this is counterinsurgency. This is countering that revolutionary thrust that was going on in these communities. When they introduced that, it's not, we look at it as a drug, but it was chemical warfare. It was chemical warfare strategy, uses those strategy with this Cherokee Nation when they were handing out smallpox blankets to the Cherokee Nation. So we see the same thing here. This time it's crack cocaine. And they introduced this in our community. As a result of it, they created a new petty, we used to call it a petty capitalist class, right? A petty capitalist class. It was cheap, it was in demand, and some poor people made money on it. But now when we look at the backdrop, all of this happening in the 80s, we saw the deindustrialization of inner cities, the inner city cores. We also saw whereas I was coming up in LA, we had the Goodwill Tire Plant, we had the Ford Motor Company, we had Bethlehem Steel, Alcoa Steel. You can come right out of high school and enter those industries, right? And make a pretty decent living, actually, make a decent middle class living. Well, with that deindustrialization, those jobs were gone. On top of that, they were gutting the social services were being gutted. So it left people poor. And many people who said, I'm not going to starve, I'm not going to let my family starve, they became involved in the drug trade. And on top of that, gangs were created. I'm not going to get into how that, but like seed organizations, which you call gangs, who got involved in it. So we had this intra-community violence that were plaguing us. Property values were going down. Property values were going down. People who were raising their children were afraid of the gangs, afraid of the drugs. People came by and they sold their property in these historic neighborhoods and moved on the outskirts, say like San Marino and Riverside or Lancaster and stuff. And they left these neighborhoods. Again, the hyper-militarization of the police. Through this, we end up getting what we call in LA the ghetto bird. 24-hour surveillance on the black community. We see you don't have the helicopters here like we have them here. It's all day long. Well, I'm thinking from San Francisco. I only see it when it's a parade. So we see the investment through the law enforcement assistant administration giving the police more weapons and more guns. Daryl Gates arrested. He was called Operation Hammer because people like Congresswoman Maxine Waters and the black bourgeoisie and Miss Leadership class demanded the police, Daryl Gates and LAPD do more about the gangs and the drugs. And you remember the infamous Operation Hammer where they used the battering ram? They put a big old thing on the front of a tank. He drove it in, they busted the side of a house. Women and children in there were eating dinner. Didn't know what was going on, and they only found like 2 or 3 joints out of that. So the neighborhoods became, and not in LA, Oakland is no stranger to this, okay? And it didn't escape that destruction. And so these neighborhoods became under siege, right? They were stripped of any kind of economic viability, and our people were left, some preying on other folks. And what this did, again, using the counterinsurgency strategy, was to eliminate that potential of revolutionary change and at the same time to weaken our communities. And as a result of that, we see that we've seen the evidence like in Black Arthur here, West Oakland, Watts, California, and places like that. And it was just, like I said, it was just total destruction. And as again, it goes way beyond just a matter of drugs being in the neighborhood. We had Freeway Ricky Ross. Los Angeles was the epic center of the crack cocaine crisis. That was the epic center. That's where all the money was coming out of. That's where all the dealing was coming up. And at the same time, Blandon, right? the Blanton and Ricky Ross, a black guy, this was still being used with the Contra situation where they were funding the illegal war through the sale of drugs and taking guns illegally from Iran. And so all of this is tied in, not just this was locally, nationally, and internationally. So these were the ramifications on these communities. And what happened, again, we had the 92 rebellion as a result of that. The 92 rebellion was a result of economic deprivation, and not only that, political deprivation, because no one is a champion in those communities. They give a lot of lip service. I don't want to badmouth Maxine too much, but these type of people, the Congressional Black Caucus, working in concert with these people to totally annihilate that revolutionary thrust, and at the same time leave our communities destroyed. But our communities were weak, people moved out, the property values were going down. So this left very fertile ground for who? Yeah, and speculators and developers. You remember the enterprise zones after the 92 rebellion, George Bush came to South LA. We couldn't believe it because we were trying to get him. But he came, and they had those other folks, our bourgeois folks protecting him, believe me. We said, come on. So he came down there and he looked around, and they wrote these reports and said they're economically deprived, they need this help, so forth. Then Clinton came in, that happened with George Bush, so they pushed this thing called enterprise zones. And enterprise zones was a tax break to give corporations incentive to come in there and develop South Los Angeles, right? Build industries, provide work, and you know, the old, what is it called, the trickle-down theory, or all boats floating on the same thing, right? So that didn't quite happen, and the corporations did come down there and invest. They hired outside people. They didn't hire people from the community. They use excuses like, well, they're not skilled, they're not educated enough, or they have criminal backgrounds. So they didn't get it. But the industry didn't flourish as what they thought it was. So there was still left a gap. So here comes the developers now, because now you got a community that's disorganized, is powerless, weak, and divided. And this was perfect time to come in and swoop in on those communities. So I know the other folks are going to be talking about other further effects of gentrification, but we're looking at that motive, the counterinsurgency strategy, and how this leads up to where we're at now, where that land is now being colonized once again by these same folks that we were fighting against in the 60s and 70s, and when they came and attacked at us, and they needed all of this destruction in our community. So I just wanted to, and later on I can ask questions, take questions about that, but they only gave me 10 minutes. So, but anyway, so I just like to say at the end, just like a Swahili phrase is kupigana tushina, and that means we will win. All right, thank you. Free the land.
And I just want to honor that it's getting cold, so we're trying to keep it moving, and we're going to talk a little bit more out here, and then we're going to start moving forward in our tour. I do want to say that we are poverty scholars. Our poor people's history comes from our lives. Our struggles with incarceration, houselessness, addiction, criminalization, all the things that Bilal just outlined were the things that we're constantly dealing with. So we are the clients, we are the consumers, we are the people that you have to throw a crumb down to, and we actually also have our own solutions. And we actually have our own solutions. Can I get a witness for a self-determination? And so that said, as we hear this history of genocide, as we hear this history of genocide, of how we even got into these intentionally blighted poor people of color neighborhoods that used to be thriving, right? We have to stand here in humility and love to honor also Uncle James from next door, who will be hearing singing in a little bit, to honor all the neighbors from next door, to honor the black writers who are across the street, Alshuja Market, all of our poverty scholars who live in the Park Lane Motel, because just because we get evicted, it doesn't mean we leave. It just means we move into the cardboard motels, like my mama used to say, like me and her did for years on the street. Because just because we get evicted, we don't got money for their speculate and then they're developing rent. It doesn't mean we leave. We just move into the cardboard motels. So here we are on this land. This is the land which is the story of a black family, destroyed by the systematic destruction you just heard from Bilal. A family like so many families who lost their ownership. So remember, we're buying and selling Mother Earth, which is a lie in and of itself.
Come on.
But their ownership, what they scrambled through the capitalist system, working in those shipyards, making their money by any means necessary, that blood-stained paper, to buy this little piece of Mama Earth right here. The family of Barkley, the Barkley family, bought this land and lost it through what you just heard. Right where you're sitting right now, there was a house where families and generations lived and thrived. Post that genocide project you just heard from Bilal, it became a crack house. Now listen to that. Let's take that back. When Hugh Hefner sniffs up blinds in his mansion, ain't nobody call his house a crack house. Ain't nobody call the CEO of Chevron, who's got a meth habit, a crack head or a meth head. But when we use the drugs that they give us like candy, when we use the alcohol and the man's poison that they have landed on every corner in our hoods, they call us alcoholics and addicts and crackheads and the homeless people. And we gotta solve the problem of the homeless people. Yeah, well, I want us all to take a little step away from that lie and recognize that we are predated on people, actually. Okay, we gotta take this scholarship back. So that said, now that it became a crack house, the Oakland PD came and basically took one of those cannons like we just heard from Bilal and shot it up. And fast forward 30 years, when the ancestors, my mama, Karina's ancestors, and all the people brought us here by any means necessary, there was nobody here except 10 migrante warriors who were squatting in the back garage. And when the earthquake hit, their entire floor fell apart. So we are on hallowed, sacred land that is the very example of the very projects that Bilal and Karina have been talking about. I'm going to ask my sister Lori to come up and give us some more background, and then Uncle Moot on the way that the jail is so close.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So I just want to talk a little bit about, I was doing some reading, as I am wont to do. I was reading about the this new transit line called the Bus Rapid Transit, or BERT. So the BERT. So the BERT is, so, I noticed that we talk about these things, we talk about, colonization, gentrification, all this. It all implies some sort of movement, like a movement. Even the word like overwhelm and overrun, movement, right? So just like with colonization, there has to be a movement. There has to be like ships or people like, walking in or something. With gentrification, gentrification has really helped along. Just like, just like an appendage, a new appendage is helped along by the growth of veins and arteries, So the BERT is, to me, it's one of those things. It's an artery. It's something that people say is going to help the communities that it runs through. But the funny thing about this, and it's a light rail bus system, right? So it's kind of like a light rail, kind of like Muni, and it's going to run from. It was supposed to run from San Leandro all the way up through Berkeley. You know, my question, but Berkeley and San Leandro didn't want it. You know, they organized against this thing. You know, and so I'm just kind of wondering if it's so good for if it's so good for communities, then why do these communities that are more affluent, why are they not interested in it? You know, so one of the representatives, a spokesperson for this new rail line, the BERT, says Oakland is in a process of rebirth. You know, rebirth. So, you know what I want to know is if we're in a process of birth or rebirth here in Oakland, then why does it look so much like death? You know, I mean, the adjectives describing in this article, the adjectives describing the current East Oakland, you know, like MacArthur, International is going to be the street this runs down. Big, wide, ugly, blighted, right? Blighted. When we look out onto MacArthur over here, you know, what do we see? You know, we see boarded up windows and burnt out businesses. You know, unlawful detainer evictions in 2015, they topped 2,453. And that's in Oakland. 2,453 unlawful detainer evictions. And since 2005, 28,228 evictions since 2005. And that's not counting foreclosures, right? So the rebirth of East Oakland, it seems like, means death by displacement of the existing communities, right? Huh. So the spokesperson for BERT says new transit will revitalize the neighborhood. Revitalize. What I see is already vital. Okay? It's already here. It's already vital. You don't need to replace my neighbors. You know, we keep things vital within our communities for our own survival. Now, against the overwhelming forces of profit and racism and racist gentrification that have literally shut down whole blocks around here, whole miles of Black Arthur and International, we are trying to author desperately and inch by torturous inch, nail by torturous nail, trying to author a poor people-led solution to gentrification. Yes. Okay? So this is what we need. We need to work in partnership with folks who have race, class, and material privilege. Come on. You know? We need to build this. Okay. Thank you. Woo.
Thank you, Lori. You know, just thinking about what's happening. You know, I grew up right here. I went to Castlemont High School. I went to Haven School right here on 66 and International. And just the changes. And then the other day, I heard somebody said that for speculators, for people who gentrify communities, when they think about something, they think about the next 10 years. How they're going to gentrify, how they're going to develop and wipe out a community within the next 10 years. And it's hard, you know, because for us as poor people, as low-income communities, we're literally thinking about what kind of gig we're going to be able to get next week to be able to pay the rent. What next hustle we got to get into to be able to keep up with the the stipends, the rising of the rents. And I wrote this little poem, man, and it says July 13, 2010. And so it's about 7 years ago. And I'm going to do this poem and then talk a little bit about the changes that I have seen in the last 7-10 years right here in this community. That little slowly has creeping up. You know, they one day just wake up and be like, damn, what's happening in this community? It wasn't like this 10 years ago. It's called Deep East Oakland. Deep East Oakland. Black, brown, Latino, Asians equals East Oakland. Coming back from the sideshows back in 1999, when we black and brown folks will see the sunrise, when we will not shoot each other over turfs. And it was all about kicking it, riding on the homies Mustang 5.0. Yeah. See, because we are working class folks. Yeah. Not enough capital to hit the movies or the theaters or the clubs. So we got down on the parking lot chilling, getting the munchies, tacos, Burger King, Mickey D's, whatever your choice is, and put up the smoke and pour the drink on the concrete floor for the long ones who are no longer with us. See, it wasn't always that much dirt in East Oakland. Until they turned our communities into concentration camps, built jail cells and police departments, wide right all the way to downtown, when they could cage black and brown folks right here in our communities, our turfs and barrios, all in the name of making it safe. I asked for who? See, because we need more jobs and opportunities to come up, not no more cops. I remember getting fitted, buying my clothes from mom and pop stores at East Mall Mall before Adidas came along. East Mall Mall where folks went and got fitted, get the latest Nike shoes, and hella good Chinese food. See, just to get ready for the sideshows. Just to get ready for the sideshows. But then some of us start going dumb, stupid, and retarded. And don't get me wrong, I love the song, but I hate black against black, brown against brown, killing each other over turfs. And we no longer ghost riding the whip. The popo is hitting us with the whip. Black and brown folks, Latino, African Americanos, East Oakland, Haven Score, Merrill's, Castlemont, Fremont, Calvin Simmons, High Street, Foothill, 106, MacArthur, packing safe parking lot. When we came together in mass, until the men in blue will break us apart. See, it wasn't always that much dirt in East Oakland until we stopped being a community, when we stopped waving and nodding to our neighbors. And let's be real, the economy doesn't help us either. And more guns in the streets than jobs is not a good recipe for any city. See, but the elders say, home always calls you back until we meet again, Deep East Oakland. I carry you in my heart, te llevo en mi corazón, with your shine and flaws, with your shine and flaws. Deep East Oakland. And I wrote these pieces, man, because unfortunately, I have the opportunity to witness what's happening here in East Oakland. I want to point out the police station right here on 73rd and MacArthur. It wasn't a police station 8 years ago, 9 years ago, 10 years ago. It wasn't a police station. It was a small little DMV office. And we see the correlations and the connection, how they bring the drugs into our community, but also how that police department wasn't intentionally put there to wipe out the community, to get rid of us. And again, like the poem says, why go all the way to downtown Oakland to get rid of us when you could do it right here in their own communities and build concentration camps? And yes, little by little, you know, I remember over here, this is a beautiful thing where we as people of color, of low-income communities, can invite people from the outside community to come and chill with us, to be part with us, right? But I also noticed that last couple of years, it's just people who are riding down in their $1,000 speeding bike, you know, and in the whole Speedo, which is like, man, that's like a $900 thing that they wear, just to, and they just zoom here. They don't stop. They don't stop here. They just zoom. They usually all you see is coming in and coming out.
That's all they ever do.
And little by little, our folks who for like the last 10 years, yes, you know, we have addiction problems. But also when it was hot days, people can actually chill on the sidewalk, drink the beers, didn't bother nobody. And now we see the cops pulling over and ticketing people, right? And so they're changing our communities. So we see that a straight connection on like how they put police departments, how they bring the drugs into our communities to get rid of us. And again, little by little making us like we don't even belong here. And it's sad because it's all the newcomers. How, you know, again, it's uncomfortable and it's sad to see all this happening. That's my piece on that. I have to change it. Also, before I can't even talk anymore, I want to present a little gift to Karina, man. Karina has been with us. There's also, I don't want to go into, there's also have been difficult moments that we have faced here in Hopefulness when we were building this, where at some point we were thought that we were not going to be able to build it. You know, because there was so much trauma in their community. There was so much trauma and drama.
All of it.
Though if you mix trauma and drama, oh mama, oh man. But she was there, and I also want to apologize for all those Raider games that she had to lose. I mean, because unfortunately we always meet on Sunday, and she missed a lot of Raider games because of us dealing with this. Again, we have always moved slowly to make sure we do it right. We don't come like gentrifiers with their nose up, you know, I pay for this real estate and this is my house. No, again, and we'll speak a little more about the DP's cafe. Every Thursday we share food with our community, and we don't give people, we don't feed the people, because we are the people. We are the impacted. We are the low income. We are those people. Those people, like the social workers talk about us. We are those people. But I just want to share, you know, sometimes we have a chance, which I haven't done in months. I used to go run up in right here, like Redwood by Joaquin Miller, you know, and I ran into a turkey, and for us, just like the yes, Asa Danzante, feathers and turkeys. Turkeys hold a lot of wisdom. They move slow. They're always checking out the scene. And so I was able to find, I didn't buy it, I found it. And so I was able to clean up this turkey, which for us is a lot of medicine. This is like, you know, giving someone a golden necklace or a golden bracelet. This is like, so I want to just present this beautiful wing that I found right here in the Oakland Hills from a turkey. You know, they belong to the Lonely people. You still gotta put like a little handle on it. It's not done. I'm passing it to you, so whatever you want to do with it. For all your time that you spent here, all the time that you couldn't watch the Raider games when you wanted to. Thank you.
Thank you so much. No, well, I wanted to say also that turkeys, they always run together, right? And so they always have a community with them. So they're not usually alone. And so like us, we're not usually alone. So thank you so much. This makes up for all the Raider days.
Unless they're lost in Berkeley. I saw one at the street corner the other day. I was like,
Beautiful. That's what's up. Can I get a witness? The time is now for hopefulness.
Yes. Time is now for hopefulness.
Land stolen, never given back. Crumbs throwing, not feeling that. Generations of lying plans traded between greed-covered hands. It's all about theft, constant white supremacist climate injustice.
Leaving us without, outside and always suspect, ready for the rich people's lies. Incarcerating eyes and hater profiles. Homes forever in danger. Dreams always deferred. We can never rest. It's time for hopefulness.
Yes.
So, I want to have people stand up, get their feet. You know, we're going to start this tour. We already in the tour. I mean, you already know that. But, and we're not going to, you know, blab at you endlessly because that's not how we are. We're artists and poets and poverty scholars. But I want you to know that not only are you standing on the essentially the space where a black family was intentionally removed by that genocidal project we heard, but you're also standing on the space of the Sliding Scale Cafe. And as Uncle Moot pointed out, we share organic food every Thursday with the community right now without a roof, because us poor people are intentionally poisoned by these foods that are available in our communities. But we all have our own recipes. We all have our own spirits. And as my sister Viv and I working on the Poor People's Plate, and she has a beautiful piece on the GMOifying of our food, we can feed ourselves. So we don't need a crumb from the big, fat poverty pimps and the non-profit industrial complex. We can actually feed ourselves, and that's what we do. So this is the future of the Sliding Scale Cafe. So that's the first part of your tour. I do want to also say, though, that as Lori pointed out, this is no magic here. This is extreme work, and it is bloodstained dollars. Folks with race and class privilege went through a project we call People School, where we teach folks about the idea of community reparations. I want to call out my sister Cecilia, who's sitting humbly here, only because there were some really powerful, conscious folks with race and class privilege who went through People School and actually made it possible for us to get enough bloodstained dollars to actually do that. And I want to give a hand to all those folks. They're not all here. They're part of something we call the Solidarity Family, which is like the Comité Apoyo of the Zapatistas. We align ourselves with the Zapatistas in Chiapas, the Landless People's Movement in Brazil, the Shack Dwellers Union in South Africa, and Move Africa, Long Live John Africa. And yeah, we love our COINTELHOs who drive past us all the time and surveil everything we say. But guess what? Ain't nobody got nothing on us because we put everything out there. And we will be continuing to walk in truth and liberation. So we have launched this thing called the Bank of Community Reparations. It includes Fromm's Martial Arts, a beautiful black-led martial arts studio that's facing a second eviction. Oh, God. Yes. And so we're trying to get enough money for them to buy back their place. We're also asking for money from Manna from Heaven, a black-led breakfast program for houseless adults, getting Gentra-effed out of their church, for Christ's sake, because they happen to have the bad luck to be in Temescal, which is a hipster neighborhood, right? Segorte Land Trust with our beautiful sister Karina and all indigenous peoples trying to take back land for healing, Ashe, and for hopefulness, because we can't build this without folks actually kicking down. So if anybody knows anybody with any bloodstained dollars or trust funds, we say, kick that down. We got our windows. That's right. This year we can't afford the windows, so that's where we're at right now. So that beautiful structure you see, that's probably as far as it's going to get for a little while. That said, over to your left is an altar for all folks who passed from police brutality, violence, community violence, poverty, and displacement. And like Motiago said in the beginning, this is one of the most beautiful things that our communities offered when we first got here. So that said, we're going to walk up, so people can follow us, we're going to walk up the land and talk about some of these beautiful gifts. Look, so maybe you can talk about the structures.
Yes.
And
to your left is Hopefulness.
So welcome everybody. This is a tour of Hopefulness. I would like to point out I would like to point out that this is one of the houses where poor people are building. I think that what I want to share real quick is that like me, Tiny, Vivian, Mama Blue, and many of you guys, I have moved over 25 times here in the Bay Area because of the increase of rent, because of different situations, because of just like, you know, I don't even want to go into detail why sometimes we have to move from our living space. But this is the first time that we as poor people have collaborated with architects and we have actually designed these ourselves. It's rare. It's rare when we can go move to a place to rent and you can actually choose what color your walls is going to be, how many windows I mean, we have been in places filled with mold. We've been into little studios that have no windows. So it's a revolutionary act that we actually, all of us, as poverty scholars, as people who were impacted, people who was building this, have sit down with people with privilege and have actually mapped out and say, this is what we want to build for our community. It's rare. Everywhere you go, I think only rich people do that. When they build a house, they get to tell their architect, this is what I want my craft room, and this is what I want my little pantry, and this is where I want to keep all my... We never had the chance to do that until now. And it actually, we were like, man, just make it nice and make it livable so we could fit as much people as we can and be sustainable. So again, that's one of the revolutionary stuff, you know, that we designed this ourselves. You are more than welcome. We don't really have insurance, so if you fall in one of these, you don't know us. You don't know who Poor Magazine is or Hopefulness is. So you can go in at your own risk. Do not climb up to the second floor, because it's still being working on. And again, I want to thank all the people, man, because this is not only the framers who are not here, but there's a bunch of people yes, me, myself, the janitors, you know, the people who clean these facilities, you know, a lot of people who are not even here to get credit for. This is not just us.
And the other thing is that these are all based on Mama House model, which is a model of multiple family living. Myself and Lori and Sandra Sandoval, we actually started or had the third Mama House in the Mission in Yalamu, San Francisco, aka Gentrification City, before we were given a $700 rent increase overnight and ended up on the street. All the families scattered. That was the third Mama House. So again, the society makes it impossible for poor families to actually collaborate, to coexist. And so our idea with this is to actually build a multiple family unit. So what this is, for instance, is this is the first floor. There's a big bathroom because it's we made an accessible bathroom. Like, these are all new things to us. We're like, what does that mean? There's a staircase that goes up to the second floor. There's 2 bedrooms, or 3 bedrooms, and then there's another room at the top. So again, like Montiago said, we're trying to fit as many families as possible in Hopefulness. And again, this is just a template. We want to do Hopefulness as many places as we can. We're working with folks in LA. We went back to Philadelphia on our Stolen Land Hoarded Resources tour, and we were able to raise $35,000 in bloodstained dollars, aka community reparations, to actually start a Hopefulness back there. So we're not playing with this. It's very, very serious. We're in a dire crisis. We need housing, and we can do for sales. That's what's up. So we're going to keep going.
So one hole, or is it?
No, it's 4 houses.
Good question. Yes.
Thank you. Go ahead.
If you have any questions,
please ask us.
This is the time. We might not answer all of them, but we can answer a few.
Okay,
so these are like
3-bedroom unit?
These are like little townhouses.
Okay.
These are like little townhouses. Sure, your kitchen is downstairs. Your little living room is downstairs too. You have an accessible bathroom for people with wheelchair. And then upstairs, it'll be the living quarters. So you have 3 bedrooms, and also the city doesn't know. Anybody here works for the city of Oakland?
I didn't say that.
Okay, there's a little attic. There's also, we want to convert it into like a living space. Because again, for us, it's like, some of us live in studios.
Hi, you too.
And in smallest places than the attic. That's a luxury SRO, what we call it. It's a big attic. I mean, for people who have spent living their lives in studios or in couches, I'm gonna cut it there because I don't want to compromise myself with the city of Oakland. Do not record these, please. Can you beep everything that I will say right now?
And with that, we're moving
With that, we're moving and nothing was said. So these are all 4 little townhouses where, yes, 4, and it has many more rooms, the living quarters. Yes. And maybe I'm gonna pass it to Sister Tracy, who's one of the co-teachers here at the Collins Academy. Because what you also see right here in the front, it's actually one of the rooms which during the day it's a school. It's a school for, again, we believe in the education of our kids and taking them out from the public schools that sometimes twist the real history. The whole notion of Christopher Columbus discovering America, and we actually flipping that. And so I want to pass to my sister Tracy to talk a little bit what happens here in terms of the school. This is this building, which you see the great building. This is one of the rooms, and we're going to have the chance to go see the other room in the back. But
greetings. Yes, I'm one of the teachers here. This is my 4th year here at Decolonize Academy. I came to Decolonize Academy as a art therapist. So I'm an artist, community activist, and kind of fold into a little bit of everything during this school year. One of the things is that last year we were very fortunate. We had a preschool because of the construction and everything. We had to like downsize, and also budget-wise, because we do not have a budget, so people know that we are just basically doing what we can with the children as much as we can. So we had the pleasure of last year having Mama Blue. She ran the preschool and was dealing with the kindergarten as well, and so the pre-K. So that's what we had last year. So hopefully in the future we'll be able to open it back up to serve, you know, our children in the community, our young scholars. And then in the back, but we also have classes. We do serve classes in here. So we have our meditation on certain 2 days a week is done in this front room. And I think the important part that people need to realize is that these are homes that people live in once we leave the school. So we're like in space, even in the back. That's Tiny's house. Like we go to the bathroom through her room, and you know that's her kitchen, that's her couch. And so, you know, just mindful of how we share as much as possible. So in the back part of the school is where we have our older scholars. So the ages that we have are as young as 8 years old and as old as 14. Boom. So.
Tell a little bit about the school.
Yes. So I'm going to hand it on over to the young scholars so they can kind of give you the gist of what we do.
Okay. Hello, everybody. I'm Tivu. I'm Amir.
I'm Zaire.
And we're 3 students of Decolonize Academy, a revolutionary mama-uncle school that I guess Auntie Tracy explained a little bit about. And so I'm just going to talk a little bit about some of the classes that we have here. And so one of the classes is led by Mama Tracy, which is healing and arts through Mother Nature, and Mama Earth and healing, taking back Mama Earth. And that's a really cool class because we learn a lot about our indigenous roots and our cultures that have been taken from us by the 500 years of colonization. And yes. I'm going to leave it to Amir to explain a little bit more about different classes.
Hi, my name is Amir. We got meditation. I like meditation because it helps me in life. It takes care of my needs. In the med school, they don't care about you. They leave you. Yep. They just care about you buying GMOs and all that stuff and be bad. And I love meditation. Auto teach meditation. And I'm gonna leave it to that.
One of the classes that we have is history, and I learned a lot about it because I learned about my roots and what I came from, and I learned that I am a pharaoh and I am a king. So
yes, that's right.
Also, they also do their own radio and TV station. Poverty Scout Youth, Poverty Scout Radio and TV. Yeah. Check them out on YouTube, and they're doing powerful work right now. The investigation that you heard Lori talk about, the BRT, youth and adults together went and just filed 12 FOIAs, that's Freedom of Information Act requests, on the way that the BRT is going to dismantle, destroy, and completely get rid of most of the black and brown businesses and people who live around International Boulevard corridor. So our young folks are going to be releasing that along with elders, and we're going to be asking a demand of the city of Oakland for reparations, community reparations, to keep our folks here, like Froms, like Auntie Frances, like Manna from Heaven, like our neighbors right next door. And our youth are taking part in that because they are the folks who are impacted. That's how we roll here at Decolonize Academy. So let's keep going, guys. We're actually, but I want people to stop for just a second. I'm sorry. But we're standing on something that looks like, it just looks like gravel, right? But actually what this is this is the birthplace, if you will, of this land. When we first got here, there was a giant tree that was living inside of the house that you see. And it was such a powerful tree, it is such a powerful tree, you can see the side of it, that it actually like burrowed into the roof. Yes. And it would not leave. It was like, no, this is my house. And when we got there, you know, the beautiful, powerful builders like Mutiado and Mark G and some other cats who are part of our building circle were immediately like, well, we got to cut that tree. And so those of us mamas were like, no, don't be cutting that tree. That's
just because he had termites.
Yeah, that part. But the roots were in this giant, beautiful circle right underneath you. And you don't see it anymore because, sadly, the top part of the roots were actually taken out by one of the folks who worked on it. But the bottom of the roots are still here. And so I have a poem for those roots. I just want people to close their eyes and listen, because this tree holds us all. Mama's arms wrap around her children. Mama's arms held up her babies, her elders, her geraniums, her beetles, her weeds, our dreams. Mama's arms weave through torn soil, broken glass, fractured rock, disrespected dirt. Mama's arms are strong like Mama's arms always are. Strong and tight, rippled with veins full of the journeys of 1,000 ancestors and the stories of 1,000 blades of grass. I knelt there next to her softness, holding on to the edges, defying real estate snakes and paper trail, defying property lines for as far as you can see. Holding us all up, wrapping us tightly in her dreams, encouraging us on, blessing us with her presence. She draws us in, she helps us dream the dream of hopefulness. The liberation of land, to house, to school, to care for all of us houseless families, children, elders, to hold us in her arms. It's just a stump. It needs to go. The contractors scream in unison. And yet we continue to dig. Our fingers pull up chard after asphalt charred, stone after stone. And then her arms are revealed. Taut, brown muscles running through the ground. Whispering with wind spirit. Está bien todos. It's all going to be okay. Está bien todos. No more displacement, government theft, and institutional control, corporate landfills and devil oatmen, legislative lies, false borders, reservation removal, and genocidal gentrification. Her arms reach into our broken hearts, our wounded minds, our tired shoulders, our crying eyes. She is solid. We will not be moved. We will not be moved. Oh. Woo! Thank you. All right, so we're going to go to the back. Oh, to the library. Uncle, as Tibu calls it, UAMDPL. So, Uncle L, Mama D, Public Library. So this is also the KEXU radio studio, because just like our Zapatista brothers and sisters, we have a Poor People's Liberation Radio here that Uncle Bilal and Diallo and Leroy and Jeremy and Viv and Mama Blue and Audrey, Candy Corn, and so many others are actually broadcasters. This is Al Robles, because he's one of our ancestor board members. We don't use those Jeffersonian terms of board, but he's watching over us all the time. As Monteado said, Auntie Karina helps us in many ways. We have an elephant council where we deal with the ways in which, sadly, as poor people, as traumatized people, we hurt each other. But we refuse to engage with the people who test, arrest, and incarcerate us. A 911 call always means death for poor people, black and brown, disabled people. So what we do is we hold each other. The reason I bring that up now is that this library is one of the ways in which we hope to offer healing, because we have to heal from these addictions that the man's poison has caused and given us, Loco and Telhos. We have to heal from them, and one of the ways we heal is this project we call the Healing Circle. And it's healing through art and liberation.
You're more than welcome to come in, walk in, guys. Don't be afraid. Check it out. This is going to be the radio and the library. Work in progress. Remember that. Yeah. Hey, you think you can? This is where we keep up our crowd. That doesn't fit anywhere. It's overloaded with the crowd. It's more work in progress too. Good video. Right. They don't want to spot them.
You talk. See what's in here.
Huh?
See what's in here.
Oh wait. Hi.
Nice to meet you. This is great. Yeah.
Degentrification tour.
Yes.
We're gonna call you that. So you know. You never get the blessing. Come on back.